Wild Space, everyone. I am glad that you found your way here. We've got a special video today focusing on Star Wars Unlimited Draft. I can see that there we go. I just had to fix something there, but yeah, we've got a full draft here, one perspective, but we have all 8 players agreed to keep their cards in drafted order, and we got photos of them at the end before they did their deck building, so that we can kind of see how the draft went from these different seats as well. So if you are interested in getting better at draft, maybe it's for a PQ that you have coming up, or you're going to the Philadelphia sector or the regional in Bilboa, which will have a sealed component with a draft for the top 8, or maybe you're just getting ready for next year's World Championships, which allegedly, will have draft as well. So here I've got Talzin, Cal Kestis, and Rey. Obviously Rey is pretty unplayable, just too expensive and not impactful enough on flip. I think about keeping Cal, and I'm just showing everyone what I have so that they can kind of see. And around the outer edge of the frame here, you can see what leaders were opened as well, so I can kind of look at what's coming. I'm thinking about keeping Cal because there is only one other Cal out there. Yellow is typically an underplayed color, with the kind of green and the blue being the dominant ones. And so I'm kind of leaning towards yellow, and I should have maybe that what well, I don't want to talk about too much with 2020 vision, but I take Grand Inquisitor thinking that yellow might be open, and I know I have an Ahsoka coming because my player on my right was choosing between Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. They got past Obi-Wan and Ahsoka because they're the player in position 7 took a Snoke. I'll just refer to myself as player 1, and then from left to right around the frame, 2 through 7. So this, you can see the leaders changing on the outer edge is where they ended up, and I'm just going to pause here for a second to kind of look at what the different seats are. So directly to our left, player number 2, they've got a Snoke, a Cal, and a Kit, and then we have a third sister, a Rey, and a Ahsoka. That's a pretty unfortunate pool of leaders, but maybe they'll be able to make something work. And then around the top, Obi-Wan third sister Rey, Grand Inquisitor Talzin, Ahsoka, Revan, Talzin, Cal, and then another Kit, a Snoke and an Obi-Wan, and then an Ahsoka, a Snoke, and an Obi-Wan. So the players on my right are looking pretty good. And one thing to keep in mind with draft is that think about which direction 2 of your packs are coming from, because most drafts are going to go pass to the left, pass to the right, pass to the left. So 2 of your packs are coming from the left, so you're going to get more of your cards from those packs. And I can assume if I have 2 packs coming that direction, I'm not going to get a lot of green passed to me between 2 Snoke and Obi-Wan players sitting on my right hand side. They will be taking many of the green cards, I imagine. So just something to keep in mind. There's a lot going on when you're drafting, and so little things like that can kind of give you an edge. So with my leader pool, Talzin, Ahsoka, and Grand Inquisitor, I'm fairly happy with that because I have both a hero and villain blue option in my leaders. So taking some blue neutral cards can kind of keep me open for a little bit while I see how things shake out. Obviously, blue is kind of understood as the strongest color in this set, so a lot of people are going to be gunning for those cards. So if they are not there, I might be able to pivot into Grand Inquisitor in yellow, but yeah, as we'll talk about pivoting a little bit later, it can sometimes be tricky in Star Wars because you only have a couple cards per pack that can afford to be, picks that you're not going to use, that are not going to end up in your deck, because we're drafting 30, 8, 42 cards. I had to do the math there. 14 times 3. We're drafting 42 cards, and 30 of them need to make our deck. It's not, if you've drafted MTG, it's a little more forgiving because you have lands in there as well, so you only need like 24 playables or 26 playables, depending on how heavy with your curve is. But in Star Wars, you need 30 playables out of 42 cards, so there's only a few cards every pack that you can afford to not end up in your deck. So, looking at the pack here, I pulled out a Depa as a card that's going to be an option, just a very strong card at the uncommon slot, and a Force Trigger, Ambush, always great. Also a Shatter Point, a Crushing Blow maybe. There's also another removal in there, the 3 damage for 1 resource, Lightning Bolt card, which I can't think of the name right now. So ultimately here, and the camera shifts in and out of focus a little bit, so sorry about the setup, but ultimately here I think Depa is the more powerful card overall, but it's close. Removal is always good, and so I'm going to take the neutral blue card just to kind of keep my options open. If I take a Depa right now, I might be kind of forcing myself into yellow hero, which I don't know. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You can talk about strategy, whether it's better to try and just commit and force something, or kind of stay open and play around and see what your options are. This pack is very underwhelming. You can see there's the fighter in there is decent. That Blockade Runner is interesting, quite a decent card for card draw. But ultimately, I'm going to end up taking this Porg. Just because, again, it's going to keep me open. I'm not committing to a color yet. And I like having 1 or 2 of these in my draft because it's just a curve filler. Here I remember I got to turn my picked cards face down. We were trying to do this a little more official draft style. Sometimes when we draft, it's a little more lenient about looking at our piles and stuff like that during draft. So I'm just pulling out kind of cards that would be like maybe considerations. There's also, yeah, the 2-drop Acolyte from the Beyond if I want to get into red villain. The lightsaber, probably not an option. There's lots of those floating around. So ultimately I'm going to take the Porg because it can be played on turn 1, which is sometimes you're starving for turn 1 plays, and it can just be played anywhere in your curve. So on any turn, it's just a decent play. And there was nothing else in that pack that I was really excited about. So we're going to go into the next pack here. We have Darth Maul's lightsaber, which is a very strong card. You might even consider it a bomb. Upgrades in this set overall are good because there's so little ways to remove them. However, I do not have a red villain leader, so picking that kind of puts me in a spot where I'm drafting a color that is going to have to be my base color, which can be tricky. I could commit into it. My other options here are some more removal and the more 1 to power, or Jocasta is just a decent body, a Jedi Force user who can get you the Force. Her ability to move experience around is not really relevant, but a 3/4 for 3 that generates you the Force isn't bad. So ultimately, sticking to my strategy of just staying open, I'm going to take the removal. You can definitely argue that the lightsaber is the better card. If I had just been picking best cards, we would have had a Depa lightsaber and something else. So we would have been maybe in 3 different colors on our first 3 picks, which, in your first few picks, you can argue that that's what you want to do, is kind of just take the best cards and then figure it out from there. Yeah, it depends on your strategy. So here I'm looking at options for red. The Jedi in Hiding is a neutral. The Jedi Knight is a red hero. Didn't see anything else in the pack that I really liked. So now I'm kind of thinking, well, do I commit to the hero path, or do I stick to my game plan of kind of being a little more open, a little more neutral? Right now I've got 2 blue cards that could go hero or villain, a neutral card, and a red card that could go hero or villain. So I'm a little flexible still. And I see a Jedi Guardian, which is a good card in Ahsoka. The Sorceress of Tund is a pretty good card for yellow. And then the Padawan is just a solid 2-drop if I'm going to play yellow. So here, if I'm feeling that yellow is a little more open, I could maybe do that, but I think I still want to make use of my Shatterpoint and Whirlwind of Power. So I take the Guardian, and now I'm kind of thinking that Ahsoka is going to be the path that I'm on. We open another pretty uninspiring pack. The Ambush creature, I think, is one that I would be interested in, especially if I had taken a yellow card last time. If I was yellow villain, the Inquisitor might be an option. So here I'm just going to take a card that's much better than any of the other options in my mind, even though it doesn't necessarily fit with what I think I'm going to be doing. And so now I've got an option between some removal, a 2-cost play, or the Vernestra, the 3-mana 3/4, which can come in and be ready to attack if you spend the Force. So I think I could take the Vernestra here and kind of commit that I'm going to be in blue-yellow hero. Or I can just take a 2-cost unit. It's sometimes you're struggling to fill out your early curve. It's not a great play there since it's a 2/2. But I'm going to ultimately go with my kind of staying open still strategy for a second color and take the It's Worse just as a solid removal option. Sometimes late in the game you want those. But we can see here that from the cards that are getting passed around, yellow does seem pretty open as it is one of the colors that is often a little bit underdrafted, with more people going for the green and the blue. And maybe that was maybe now I think, oh, maybe I should have done that. So I know I have 1 red card in my pool that I could utilize. I'm looking at options in this pack. It could be this Ambush Jedi 2/4 with Restore. But that would put me down green, which I haven't picked any green cards yet, and I know it's going to be heavily drafted. The Nexu is an okay body. I have 1 other red card, so I think about, knowing that I just picked an It's Worse, think about the card that lets you play it for free, but ultimately that's pretty niche when it happens. So I take the green card here, and I think this is probably a mistake. I think taking the Nexu is better because I know how much green is going to be cut from the players on my right. I mean, unless they're both playing Snoke. Here we pick up a Lothwolf. At this point in the pack, that's a turn 1 play that is solid. It's can trade with a couple other things, so I'm not going to complain about that. Here we have a very uninspiring pack. Probably none of these cards are going to make a deck unless I pivot to green villain. The lightsaber could be okay. I guess you could always try and play, as I have foreseen it, or yellow villain as well. The lightsaber is playable, but not for the blue hero path that we are kind of going down right now. So here, a couple options. Seeing a Lorsan Tekka this late makes me think that my neighbors to my right are not playing green hero, that they could both be on Snoke. And so he is a okay 2-drop, especially with Ahsoka. I don't need the Force as much as other people do. So the one downside is that he will get traded into from some of those 2/4s, but he does have the value of potentially handing out experience tokens. Here, I mean, a couple of these cards you might play in your deck if you're in yellow. At this point, I'm not entirely sure that I will be, but we just take what we get at this stage of the draft. All right, now we're going to get a chance to look back through the pool. So this is a really important part when you're drafting. In between every pack, you get to look at what you've picked, so you can kind of keep track. And there's a lot going on in drafts with, you know, kind of keeping track of what your opponents might be taking as well as what you are taking. So this is really good to try and, you know, keep yourself reminded of your options and where you're going. One thing that I really like to do when I'm doing this, and you'll see me do it here, is just count out the 2 cost plays that I have, because you really want to make sure that you have enough turn 1 plays in your deck. So usually I like to be around 6. Some people might argue that 5 is okay, that you need 7, but somewhere between 5 and 7 is probably great. And then I'm also looking at what's my second color going to be here. So I'm feeling that I'm in blue, with some of my better cards being blue. I've got a red card, a couple green cards, a couple yellow cards. So I'm still fairly open in my second color, but I really need to lock that in now, because we are getting into the territory where we might not have enough playables. So in this pack, I want to keep taking some blue if I can, but make sure that I keep my second color open, or sorry, lock down my second color. And I think what happens here is the very first pick, I'm like, oh, it's a Gunji or a Gunji, or however you say it. And that's a really, really premium turn 1 play. It's going to put me into green. I have 2 green cards that I'm fairly happy with, that are going to be in my deck if I go that route. So I'm debating between sticking in the blue hero or kind of locking in green as my second color here. And I'm kind of hoping that if my opponents are not playing Obi-Wan, that this Jedi Guardian might wheel, make it back around the table. So we will see if that happens, and we'll kind of keep an eye on that once our pack gets back to us. So in our second pack here, now we're coming from the left, and we can see that our opponents have some green, red, yellow options as their leaders. One could be playing Ahsoka, but we get a couple decent cards here. The Knight Saber is quite strong. Unfortunately, at this point, with only 1 red card, I think we're too far gone to start going down that path, so I don't want to pivot at this point. So I'm going to take the not quite as good, but still solid blue lightsaber. Although there was a couple other choices there, I think the lightsaber is definitely the best of those 3. And now we're going to be very excited as we get past a Yaddle. So that's really clear that neither the people on our left are playing blue hero, because that would be a first pick for most people. The other card that I looked at there was the Dagoan Master, which can let you draw the top 5 if you use the Force and look for a Force unit. Also would have been solid since I'm in green, but I value having those very good turn 1 plays as well, and so Yaddle is too good to pass up. And here we get an Itinerant Warrior as well. So it seems like, coming from this side, blue hero is wide open, because those picks should have been long gone. And so maybe the person that is in seat 4 is playing Obi-Wan with a color that other than blue, or maybe they're playing Third Sister, I'm not sure, but it's pretty clear that seat 2 is not playing Ahsoka, otherwise those 2 cards would not have made it to me. And I can guarantee the same for seat 1, although they don't have a blue leader, so that's a little more easier to say. So we're feeling better about the draft now. That's kind of given us some confidence. Our pool is getting better. We run into a rough pack here. I think we're looking at the Monkey Lizard just as a 2-cost kind of deal 2 damage, sort of quasi-removal. Or the Space Whale can remove space units later in the game if people are trying to kind of go space aggro on you. And here I kind of think better of it, and I think I'll take a card that can kind of remove something in space potentially. And you can debate if that's the right choice or not. I think it's kind of, you could go either way. I think on those. 7 is pretty late, and it's not the most impactful play, but it still can do something. Our next pack here, we get an Owen. Happy to see that. Gives us a little bit of restore, a little bit of card draw. Nothing else very exciting in that pack. What we would really like to see, especially coming this direction, is some decent green cards, because we know that we're not going to be getting many in our last pack, but the green is not really there either. So I've got a Whirlwind of Power or a Gungan. Removal is always good. I think I'm going to stick with that. It gives me a 4th kind of removal card, which is in the range that I want to be. The one thing that I'm worried about at this point is that I don't really have any bombs. My early curve is okay. My removal options are okay. I need some big closers to kind of finish things out. I take a card that is going to be playable over the ambushing yellow creature there, because we've kind of committed to green at this point, although seeing that creature at this late in the stage makes me think that we would have been okay. So here's our original pack. Unfortunately, the Guardian is gone, so we end up with a green creature, the Kadu, which is okay. And here we've got some options between a Space Sentinel, some filtering in the Compass, or just a larger 6/6 spaceship that can help close out games. I think we need some more impactful cards on the top end, so I think I'm going to go with the 6/6. At least I think I should. Can't remember. Yeah. And that makes us feel a little bit better, although we would like some stronger units for the ground arena. And then here, seeing the Sorceress a ton, the 6/6 shielded with 4 cards left in a pack. I don't know if I was registering it at that point, but now looking back at it, I'm like, oh man, why were we not in yellow? Playing blue-yellow hero in this draft would have been amazing, especially if we had taken that Depa pack one, pick one. Just kind of junk here. I end up taking the lightsaber just because the Snoke player on my right could potentially put it in his deck, whereas there's no way he's putting that Oppo Ranacissus in his deck. So here we get to look through our pile again and take a look at what we need to fill out as far as our curve goes and as far as what we're missing. So we're keeping the cards in order again so we can kind of review the draft at the end, whereas if you are drafting, you might want to arrange them a little bit by cost or by color. So now we're up to 4 decent turn 1 plays in the Loth Wolf, the 3/2 there, the Gunji and the Yaddle. Half a play maybe with the Owen, which is not great. Again, the Jedi Starfighter is not great, but in a pinch could be something. So getting a turn 1 play, a couple more would be great in this third pack, but we really need to see some bombs, some big stuff to close us out. So here we've got an option between the Sage and the Dagon Master. And I think, kind of having just gone through our pool, I think the Master's the better pick because we need a little bit more top end. I think I might take the Sage here though, because I just want some of my 2-cost plays I don't really want to play on turn 1. I can't remember. Okay, we do take the master, and I think that is right still. You can make an argument that it should have been the sage. It's just a much better overall turn one play, but I need some value. And here we see another Depa, and now we're like, oh my gosh. If we'd been in yellow here, we would be laughing. The Nameless Terror is quite good as well for the villain players, but we are way too far into the draft to start going that way. So it looks like we're choosing between the 5-mana 5/5 in space, which is like a decent option to close out games. And here I think I actually take the Depa because I know, I'm pretty certain that the person on my left is going to be in yellow here. I passed them a Depa on pick 2 of pack 1, and I don't really want to pass them another one. We can talk about hate drafting as a strategy maybe a little bit later, and we can talk about it now. Here I pick up Yoda's Lightsaber, which is a great card. Tells me that neither of my opponents on the right are in green hero, or if there was something very good in that pack for one of them. So yeah, hate drafting. Do you want to hate draft, which is take away a card that's going to be good for your opponent even though you can't use it? In that spot, the card that I was taking, the 5-mana 5/5 Raid 1 Starship, is fine. It's a playable. It's not great. I'm not super excited about it. But Depa is just so strong, and passing her along to my opponent, you know, I might never face that opponent, so then I've just reduced my deck's quality to do essentially nothing for my own game plan. I need to win 3 matches. So I think a lot of the time the general rule is don't hate draft, just make your deck the best you can. In that spot, I think I did it just because the card I would have picked otherwise is just like fine for my deck, but not great. And so in that spot, I think I just I can still kind of, you can play Depa as a 8-mana 5/7. I mean, yeah, maybe it's pretty terrible, but here I take another 2-drop. I think probably I probably had the thought going into this pack that I need to pick up another couple turn 1 plays, which is why I take the 2-drop there over the 4-mana 4/5. I think for my curve, the 4-mana 4/5 is just better, and so I probably should have taken that. Here I'm considering another turn 1 play, or the Cadu, which isn't great, or this upgrade. I think I take the turn 1 play here again, and probably I was overemphasizing that in my head, how many I needed, because the 4/5 was definitely a mistake. I should have taken that instead, because our mid and late game isn't that great either, and I do need more stronger bodies to play throughout the curve. If you have a comment on hate drafting versus not hate drafting, let me know if you would have taken the Depa there, or if the 5-mana 5/5 is just way better. Here, there's just tons of yellow hero still. I am really regretting not being in yellow hero. Got an option between this guy to give my Sentinel a shield, which synergizes with Ahsoka's ability to pass out Sentinel, so he's a little better in Ahsoka than he is in most decks, so we'll pick him up. We're not super excited about it. We've got another one, or we've got a Porg, or we've got Calm in the Storm here. I have never drafted this card, Calm in the Storm, before. It's an uncommon, so I don't see it that often, and if I'm, haven't been playing Blue Hero when one came around, but it's a card that I'm interested in trying to see if it'll work. Again, we've got another shade, the 4-mana 4/5, or the Curve Filler. I'm gonna take the Calm in the Storm here, just to see, if we can make it work, especially with the ability of Ahsoka to give that unit that you buff up Sentinel. And we will talk about that card more later. No spoilers. So we're getting down to the last pack here. There's a few picks left. Nothing useful in this pack. I think I take Manchian Road just because it's my best. It's the card that I don't want my opponents to have. I don't know. And none of these cards are going in my deck anyway. So here you can, yes, you're taking the card that is going to be best for your opponents. Which you can argue it's one of those other cards, but all of them are pretty middling. And then a couple more pickups here. Again, nothing is going in the deck. And we didn't have the same timer rules that they have for official drafts, but we were trying to move fairly quickly. Lifewind Sage, Yellow Hero would have been really nice to be in at this point. But that's hindsight. Can't live in the past, can't live in regret. Yeah, getting a Jedi Sentinel with 3 cards left in the pack really lets you know that there is... if there's someone drafting Yellow Hero, there's only one of them. And then our last card is a Lifewind Sage. So, we are going to get a chance to review the deck here, but we will just go and look at our draft. So, pack 1 is on the left. Our first pick was a Shatterpoint. You can see it over there at the top. Then we went Curious Flock, Whirlwind of Power, Jedi in Hiding, Guardian, Pillak gets worse. So nothing other than the Shatterpoint really exciting. Like the Whirlwind of Power is good. We have a couple playable cards in there. But after pack 1, I was feeling a little bit like, oh, this is not great. Pack 2 helped a lot, picking up the Yaddle, the Gungi, the Lightsaber, the Itinerant Warrior, and another Whirlwind of Power. That pack felt a lot better. But then pack 3 started well. We had the Dagon Master and a Yoda's Lightsaber. After that, there was nothing else really, nothing else that was too inspiring. So I wasn't super pleased with the draft. I think I should have... I don't know if you can say I should have picked Depa pick 1 over the Shatterpoint. Especially with the fact that I did not have a Yellow Hero leader. It's hard to make that, call right there, whereas Shatterpoint gives me more flexibility. I think looking around the table, if we bring up this window again that had the options for leaders, I can kind of see, player 1, they're probably looking at Kit or Snoke, so they're fairly open. Player 2 doesn't have great options. They're red, maybe blue. They might try and force Ahsoka if they think Third Sister is not the option for them. So they might be in blue. Then we've got, Obi-Wan could go either way in seat 3. Seat 4, they're probably going to try and play Talzin. Same for seat 5 and 6. Seat 7, they've got good options between Kit, Snoke, and Obi, and Kit, Snoke, and Ahsoka. So just looking at the color distribution, I can probably guess that there's going to be a lot of blue and green played. Maybe yellow is the right place to be. But hey, that's hindsight, right? So it's always tough. So out of this pool, you can see that we didn't even get enough playables. So we have these 2 random yellow cards in there that we are probably not going to play throughout the game, just because the extra mana will be too much. It's possible we get to 8 to play a Depa. And you can also see that our early curve is way too big, and we are missing top end, and we are missing kind of solid mid-range bodies. That was an oversight during the draft. I think I was kind of worried, that I didn't have enough good turn 1 plays, and so a couple times I was like, oh, here's a 2-cost card, I'm gonna take that, when there was something better that could have gone into my 3 or 4 slot. We didn't really see any true bombs in this draft, so we didn't miss out there for our colors. But it's something with 4 pieces of removal. We got a Yoda's Lightsaber. That's a really strong card. You know, it's a deck that maybe we can make it work. It's not great, but maybe we can make it work. We're going to look at the other seats now and kind of evaluate how they are doing, or how they did. So this is the player directly to our left. He has gone the yellow hero route. I think us passing that Depa in the first pack kind of locked him into that train after he went pick 1 Karis. Karis is a very strong 2-drop, possibly the best in the game, so you can see how he was maybe thinking, oh, I might end up on Snoke. But ultimately, he got the Depa pick 2, and then he just rolled down the hero train with the Jedi Knight, the Youngling Padawan, and then the Vernestra in the middle of pack 1. That would feel really good if you're in that seat. And then pack 2 picking up a Rey to start things off, another Jedi Knight, which is good. In the middle of that pack, and in the middle of pack 3, getting Knight Sabers. It's probably the strongest lightsaber in the game, and he has lots of Jedi to equip them on. So you can see he could play Cal or Kit here, depending if he wanted to be a little more aggressive. He ultimately settled on Kit because he got enough Jedi to make that work. And this is the deck that he built. It is fairly balanced throughout the curve, light on removal, just 1 Will of the Force, but the 2 lightsabers are very strong, and because he played Kit, he has that extra ping, which kind of is a quasi-removal thing so that your opponent can't value trade you as much. You could look at the number of Jedi. There's the Jedi Starfighter, the Youngling Padawan there in the 2-drop slot. 2 Jedi Knights plus Vernestra plus Jocasta, so lots there. The Jedi Sentinel times 2, Quinlan in the 4 slot, Rey and Sayorsi. So throughout all the slots of his deck, he's got Jedi. So triggering Quinlan's ability, or triggering Kit's ability rather, should probably be fine. Their turn 1 plays are maybe not amazing. You really are looking for your Jedi to start Kit going, and really you're looking for Jedi on the ground. So Youngling Padawan is like your best play, and the other ones are all kind of okay. But it is what it is. I think it's a very balanced deck overall. The player in the 3rd slot, so they started with Adepa as their first pick, and then they went into some red, thinking maybe they'll play Rey or Third Sister, and then that Darth Maul's lightsaber that we saw in the 3rd pack made it all the way to them, and they were happy to take that, and then they went villain after that, taking Army of the Dead, and then a couple yellow cards came their way, so you can see they kind of settled into yellow red villain. They pick one, pack 2 pick 1 was another Darth Maul's lightsaber, which is crazy because that is as a starter deck card, it's very uncommon to see, and so the fact that they got 2 was wild. And then a Craving Power, which at 7 is still a very good piece of removal, and a Will of the Force, so a couple nice removal there at the start of pack 2. And then a Sorceress and a Rathtar Shinhati, so some solid cards there in the first half of that pack. And then you can see that they realized they only had, I think, 1 turn 1 play, and so their 3rd pack was a Purge Trooper, and then turn 1 play, turn 1 play, turn 1 play, turn 1 play, and then a couple more turn 1 plays just all the way through that pack. So they might have overcompensated once we take a look at the deck that they built and got carried away. So a little bit similar to what I did, where I was worried about not having enough or not having good ones. So in my third pack, I probably took too many. You can see they're very attachment heavy. They've got a Sorcerer's Blast, a Will of the Force. They are very light through the middle of their curve. But if they are, able to generate some value from some of their attachments during those turns, you never know. A yellow-red villain in this draft, I would say, feels like one of the weaker combinations, unless you're seeing multiple Shin Hatis, multiple Aura Sings, those premium cards. I think the overall card quality is just a little bit lower than the other colors. That said, having 2 Darth Maul's lightsaber would definitely make up for that, especially on a leader like Third Sister, who deploys as hidden, so they can't just take her out right away, and then you have time to attach that lightsaber to her and start going to town. Alright, the next seed over there, we had an Obi-Wan. They started with a Pack 1 Marin, or Pack 1 Pick 1 Marin. It's interesting. I'm not sure what else would have been in that pack. It doesn't seem like an amazing pick to me, but I mean, it has its uses. It has its upside for sure. Then a couple green turn 1 plays, and then they found a Crushing Blow. So they were thinking, maybe I'll get into blue. But the rest of that Pack 1 is not looking great for them. Pack 2 starts out strong with a Torrent Attack, a Plo Koon, and another Crushing Blow, as well as a Dagobah Master. So 4 pretty solid picks there. They took that Jedi Guardian, which was probably the one we were hoping would wheel in Pack 2. So they're kind of committed to being in blue as well. And they have in the third pack an Ezra, a Protect the Pod, a Night Sister Warrior, and a Secretive Sage. So some solid options there to kind of fill out their deck. The Protect the Pod is a really good piece of removal as well. And so they end up with a deck that looks like this. Again, heavier on the turn 1 plays, but some definite stronger mid and late game with the Torrent Attack, the Plo Koon, and a couple good. I mean, Crushing Blow can be either really good or a little underwhelming. It depends on the situation. It is one reason to not put lightsabers on your turn 1 plays. If you are playing an opponent that could be playing blue, Crushing Blow will blow you out. So don't put lightsabers on your turn 1 plays. Alright, next seed over. They opened a Shatterpoint, then they went Drain Essence, Crushing Blow, and so they were into blue villain pretty quick, and then they picked up an Acolyte of the Beyond, and I think that pulled them into red a little bit. Pack 2, Savage and Kylo, and then another Savage in pick 4 there. That's an 8th brother in pick 3. That's a very, very strong card. I don't know if they had time to pivot into green or not, but from where they were sitting, this pack 2 would have been coming the direction from where 2 potential Snokes were sitting, so they're probably not getting green cards in pack 2. So I think even though 8th brother is very good, they kind of have to stay the course. Then in pack 3, they really get paid off by picking up a Talzin's Assassin, and a Tragedy of Pelagius is a decent removal option. Nameless Terror, very strong. So they kind of, their draft got brought together there a little bit in the third pack. Pretty decent deck overall. 8th brother as an option there, kind of set off to the side. Something that you could pay 8 for. It might be worth it. We will talk about how this draft played out as well at the end here. But in the interest of time, we will talk through it and not show clips. So, pack 1, pick 1, Talzin's Assassin. That's what you like to see when you have a Mother Talzin in your pool. Then they went Sorceress Blast, Acolyte of the Beyond, the Droid, and a Purge Trooper. So they're pretty set into blue-red villain. The second pack, they open a bomb in the sun, which is great for them. Nameless Terror is also very good. And throughout the way, they've managed to pick up a variety of Jedi in hiding. So they ended up with 3 Jedi in hiding. And then their 2-drop slot is not great. They've got these Guardian of the Wills with no attachments, really, that they want to play on turn 2, which is unfortunate. But, you know, sometimes you gotta suffer in certain spots. A Talzin's Assassin, an Asajj, the Sun, the Blockade Runner could be okay. And then they've got some removal in the Sorceress Blasts. Alright, moving along here. This is seat 7. You can see they opened a Sun, and so they were thinking maybe they're going to play Snoke. Then they opened an Adigalia, and they're thinking, oh, maybe I'll play Kit. They went Medical Frigate, then they opened a Nile Marauder, they picked a Nile Marauder. So you can see here in the first 5 picks of this draft, 6 picks of this draft, this is kind of the opposite of what I had done, where I kind of kept myself in one color that had a couple options, and I wanted to stay open. They've taken the strategy of, I'm going to pick the best card in the pack, no matter what, and then we'll see where we go from there. So you can see between the Sun, Adigalia, Nile Marauder, Ezra, they're kind of pulled in 4 different directions there. And they're going to end up actually in blue-green villain with Obi-Wan. And their third pack really brings it together. Chirrut, Maz, Kelleran, Yoda's lightsaber, another counselor, a luminous beings, which could be a game-ending kind of pump. So this is a case where they had a good card in a bunch of different colors to start, and then eventually they did find their way and they did find their road. I wonder if that last pack isn't so good to them. They might be in a lot of trouble having such diverse kind of first 5 picks, but who knows? Who knows? It paid off for them, so you can't fault it too much. They do have to put in the 1 off-color card here with the Knight's Saber, but it's a solid one to run if you need to. And then our last player, the player to my right, started with a Karis as well, very strong turn 1 play. Then they went with a Knight of Ren, which is great for Snoke. They took a couple other hero cards there to maybe give themselves an option to pivot into Obi-Wan, but then Praetorian Guard and Fallen Jedi kind of, I think, put them on their path for Snoke. The last pack, they got 3 Praetorian Guards in a row, which is great. And they ended up here with a deck like this. It's sometimes okay with Snoke to have a curve that is slightly more early game, because you can use your ability to buff up those units and make them bigger. They're a little bit lacking on removal. They have the 1 Protect the Pod and the 1 It's Worse than 1 Crushing Blow, which is okay. Their 4-5 slots are lower, but they do have 2 Army of the Dead, which might be able to help them close, and Snoke himself is pretty solid. So just to return here, we just going to run through the tournament really quickly. We randomly played for seeding. I ended up playing one of the Talzin players, and they actually beat me, so I was out right away. A couple things to note. Game 1 was just them doing Talzin things. I don't think any of the Talzin players had particularly strong decks, just because there was so much blue being drafted everywhere around the table. You can see just from this slide, player 1, blue-green, player 2, blue-red, we have player 7 in there multiple times. I think that one is player 5. Player 5, blue-red, then player 7, the Obi-Wan blue-green, Snoke blue-green, another Obi-Wan blue-green, player 6 at the end, blue-red. So much blue, a lot of green. People are really fighting over those. And then red hero is only played by Kit, and yellow villain only played by third sister. So in the game 1, they just had Talzin removal, Talzin's assassin, her little ping. They had a couple removal cards. Game 2, I talked earlier about the card Calm with the Storm. 2 cost, exhaust a friendly unit, give it a shield and 2 experience token. I wanted to try that card out, and it actually worked out quite well. If you're kind of on the fence about that card, at least in Ahsoka, what I was able to do was turn 1 I played a wolf, and then turn 2 I put a shield token on it with the 1-cost guy, and they used Crushing Blow to take that out, which kind of paved the way for me being able to use this card with confidence. So then I had a Yaddle as well, turn 2. And then turn 3, I was able to attack with Yaddle, get the Force, and then follow it up on the next turn. Calm in the Storm, give her Sentinel. So she's a 4/6 shielded. And it kind of roadblocked them for a little bit. And then, oh no, that's right. It was Calm in the Storm and a Yoda's lightsaber on it because they had just played their Crush the turn before. So then it was like a 7/7 with a shield, and I could give it Sentinel with Ahsoka, and it ran the game over and let me win that game. So yeah, Calm in the Storm, interesting card. I think worth picking up. A little bit higher value in Ahsoka than anything else, but if you haven't tried it before, worth trying. Game 3 was closer than Game 1. Talzin took it down. From the other games, a couple things to note. Even though they were the only player on yellow villain, the third sister deck wasn't great. It did manage to beat the Obi-Wan player who had what I would say was a much better deck, just because of the Maul's Saber. When I talked to these players, they essentially said, oh yeah, Maul's Saber on third sister both games, and just got run over. Obi-Wan didn't have a way to deal with it cleanly. And so, yeah, just because they won that matchup doesn't mean you should go into a draft thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna play yellow red villain. I still think it's a fairly weak color combo, as emphasized by the next match where they lost to Talzin. Kind of an average to below average Talzin deck. The Kit Snoke game, they talked about, when we talked about it afterwards, the interaction between Kit and Snoke is really interesting, because if Snoke pays 1 to buff his unit to let it get a value trade, it gives Kit a window to attack with a Jedi first, so that when Snoke takes that value trade, Kit can then ping the unit off. And so it's a really interesting kind of back and forth between those two. And actually the same thing happened with Obi-Wan. If Obi-Wan's taking an action to give an experience to try and get a value trade, then it gives Kit an action to attack with a Jedi, which enables his hero ability, which can then ping off the unit that takes the value trade. So really, really interesting how those matchups interact. And then, that was something that they talked about and wanted to point out. Ultimately, this event was won by our Kit Fisto player. In Game 1, they lost. They had no turn 1 play. They couldn't catch up. They were playing a Talzin. And then Game 2, they got to put a Night Saber on Kit, and they used Trust Your Instincts, the 1-mana spend the Force attack +2, and you get first strike, or you get to do your damage before the opponent. And they were able to cleanly kill the Talzin leader without taking too much damage back, and then that let them kind of snowball from there. Game 3 was back and forth. They were just kind of grinding each other down at this point we were watching. And it came down to the kit player playing Will of the Force on a big unit that Talzin had played the turn before. I think it was a Savage maybe. And then the card they discarded from their hand was the only thing they had resources left to play that turn, because I think they'd played I don't know, they'd played something. They'd played a 2-cost card. So the way it turned out, the game kind of swung, because on resource 7, the Talzin ended up doing not too much that turn, and that let the kit kind of take the game over from there. We have a couple takeaways, and this has gone longer than I intended. We'll try to wrap it up here under the hour. Is Kit the best leader? No. Kit managed to win this one. I do not think he's the best leader. I think he's still a good leader, but I think that had more to do with no one being in Red Hero at the whole table, and only one other person playing Yellow. So if you look at the deck lists, I think overall, top to bottom, their deck was just the strongest. And that's without seeing... We didn't open a single Mace or a single Kiadi in any of the packs, which was interesting. They did have a weakness in their deck, and so it's also luck, because their turn 1 plays are not great if you look. But the kit players said that out of their 8 games that they played, Young Padawan was their turn 1 play in 6 of them. So sometimes it's just variance, right? That's their best turn 1 play, and he happened to draw it, so that's good. Attachments are huge. If you're going to a draft, don't underestimate just how powerful that can be. There's very few ways to remove them, especially if they are on a leader. So picking those attachments earlier in the pack can sometimes be worth it. When you are drafting, I would say I think it's important to be decisive. I think we talked about before, there's not a lot of time to pivot later in the draft. And so, because you need to make so many of your picks, need to go in your deck. So while in your first couple picks, maybe you can waffle and just take the best card, you need to lock it in pretty quick. And then, yeah, some individual cards. Sorry, excuse me. We talked about Calm in the Storm already. The lightsabers. Trust Your Instincts is a rare, but it performed very well. They said a couple times throughout the day. And then even the big... the Rathtar, I think there was a big play where he got to pounce with the Rathtar for a ton of damage. There's not a lot of cards in the set that have the stats that the Rathtar has. So if you need finishers, red has that, which some of the other colors don't have. Anyhow, hope this helps you for your drafts, for your PQs, for your sectors, your regionals, whatever you're going to. If you have other thoughts and opinions on the picks that were made during the drafting process, be sure to let me know, leave a comment, or if you have tips and tricks for drafters, go ahead and leave a comment as well. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time.